Hello and welcome back to the Let's Backflip Show. I'm Ryan Fring, creative director here at Backflip. Joining me today is Philip Hetu. I did it right that time.
Yeah.
Philip Hetu. Yeah, nice. Lead developer, designer. What do you want to call yourself? What's on your business card?
Lead design.
Lead design. Nowhere.
I think it's lead, I don't even know. Lead designer, developer, something.
I'm creative director.
Lead design and development, I think. Maybe?
That sounds impressive. Phil usually talks about philosophical things, so we're going to talk a little bit about some interesting things. In this podcast, in this vlogcast, we have logo design trends to avoid this year. It's one thing that fascinates me because when I suggest ideas or we talk about different things, you can more easily than anyone else pinpoint when that was, kind of where we are in that curve. Like,
oh yeah,
hey, we are well beyond the point of no return. We should not use that trend.
Well, yeah, there's. I think when you're in it a lot, there's branding is not that different than anything else that is aesthetic. So like when you walk into someone's kitchen and you're just like, wow, this kitchen was done in 1998, wasn't it?
That's true. I can do that. I can be like 70s.
Right.
You can tell by the tans and the greens.
Exactly. Or it's just like, oh, this is all golden oak. Like this looks like every, house that was done in 1994. Or at my elementary school, Longfellow Elementary, shout out to the Dolphins. I remember when it was built, it was redone and everything was turquoise and purple, like, which was just the color palette to use for like a 4-year stretch.
And that wasn't your school colors?
No, it was just
Wow.
it was just the interior design choices. It wouldn't have been bad were it not for the fact that everyone started doing it, that's just a trend, right? I mean, that's kind of the definition. It's not inherently bad. It's just you get tired of it because everyone does it. And usually everyone does it because it's actually kind of good. Any trend, interior design, exterior design, clothing, fashion, I mean, all of it is fine at the time, but it has an expiration date because you can just kind of start to tell. Haircuts, I mean. Well,
there's something cyclical about that too, and I'm curious maybe about logo if graphic design will be cyclical as well.
Oh yeah.
But I was talking with somebody the other day how music is cyclical and the types of music that we like are coming back, and movies are cyclical in TV, like the style, like the weird kind of 80s nostalgic stuff. And I think part of it is because you get to a certain age and then you start making things that you grew up with and you like, but then clothing as well, and hairstyles. So kind of like the popular suit style and hairstyle now is kind of a 50s, kind of clean cut,
sure.
the kind of what we have, but maybe even more cleaned up. But I think it is cyclical, all that. So I'm curious, what are we chucking out today? What are trends to avoid this year?
I don't know that I've seen anything very specific like in the last 5 or 6 years that it's just like, it's going to be, you're going to be able to tell, maybe with the exception of like very bright gradients, right? That's really huge right now. And you were mentioning 80s and 90s design. That's, I mean, we're way into that.
Are you describing kind of like the Hulu? Like the bright color gradients, 4 colors?
Yes, like super bright gradients, not muted anything. Everything is super bright, super vibrant. I mean, we're back into 1982. Like that's kind of what's really, really in right now. So, the first thing that I thought of that happens in logos for some reason is just random letter customizations. Because so if you see some logo, right, and it's like, oh, we'll lay this out and pick a font. Yep. Helvetica, sure. And then we'll just start like nipping off the corners and rounding things and for no reason, we have a letter customization.
Flipping a letter around.
Here's the thing. That is an intentional letter customization, right? So we have that in our logo, and we have our K flipped around in the Backflip logo, which of course makes sense. I mean, our name is Backflip. We flipped around the K, makes some sense. It also makes sense visually because the letter form of the K,
it's fantastic.
It fits together. Yeah. It worked out pretty well. Yeah, so I mean, if you have a letter customization, or if you take one of the letter forms and customize it with intentionality, where it's like, oh yeah, there's a particular reason that we did this, it matches with our brand, or speaks somehow to our identity. Right. That's fine. That's great, and do it. But there's a trend of just sort of randomly clipping things off.
I see that all the time.
Mostly, I think, just because they don't want to only have that typeface, right? It's not custom enough, so we need to start customizing.
It's not a logo, it's just words in a typeface, yeah.
Which, I mean, is fair, but you don't solve the problem by just, lopping off. Or like, the ascender on the R, right? Like, so there's, the little stem on the R, not the ascender, the stem on the R, or the stem on the N, and people just chop them off and like start, yuck. Do not do that.
Yeah,
that is a
I feel like
idea.
Part of that too is so extending some of those extremities or those parts that point out from the letters, but then also some kind of bunching together. I see a lot too.
Yes.
And that ends up, you trim off a little piece or you hide something behind. And maybe the hiding behind is another one that I see a lot of. And I don't actually hate it, but I see it all the time, and there's not intentionality behind it.
Right.
It has nothing to do with their brand or other
designs.
designs.
It's just like a thing that is popular to do. And actually that brings me to the next one that I had written down, which is just that super tight kerning, right? Where we just take all of our letters and just kind of smash them together. Man, one of the worst rebrands from the last year, it's gotten a lot of attention, was what Redbox did. The first thing that they did was they turned it into a slab serif, right? So it was just sans, Redbox, and all the characters were spaced out, and the D and the B were kind of, they mirrored each other in the middle, so they had kind of a visual thing going on there. And there was like an arch. This year, they put slab serifs on the whole thing. The X jams into the O, so it looks kind of like a lowercase a. Like if you're just...
Oh, it kind of does. Redbacks.
I mean? Yeah, it looks like Redbacks. The whole thing is just not very readable.
Yeah.
So what they actually did was they took the X, which was the biggest problem, the O and the X, and they actually moved the X out because there was enough backlash that they were like, we need to fix this. So yeah, don't jam all your letters together. There's value in readability.
It's terrible.
Yeah, and it's just really not, it's really not a trend so much as it is just like this is happening, I'm going to do it.
Right.
Why? Well, I don't know, because it's happening.
Well, it kind of seemed like it had the first point you made as well. The slab serif on some of the letters, not on the others. They weren't lopping things off, but they were just adding extra decoration.
Yeah, and for some. What? Yeah. Like whatever you do, be intentional about it. You can make arguments for things. As long as there's intentionality behind it. But when you're just kind of randomly doing stuff because it's like, I don't know why. It
looks different.
Yeah, it looks different. We need to be custom.
Right.
Customizations for customization's sake are generally not a good idea. So, trend to avoid, number 3, is the all lowercase, like all lowercase sans serif looking logo.
Look, I feel like there was something in the 90s, maybe the 90s, because when I was... first businesses or doing different things. I feel like there was a trend back in the 90s of a lot of lowercase as well. And maybe it was more with the rise of like the .com craze of doing things lowercase. Yeah. But it's interesting too to see that kind of come back around because I'm seeing that a lot more as well.
There's exceptions to every rule, and if there's a reason behind it and it makes sense, fine. What all lowercase, I think the justification for all lowercase a lot of times is that it feels friendlier. We've heard that before. Right. Yeah. It just feels, there's something more, I don't know, personal about it or whatever. So then you get some giant conglomerate company, right, that now they're trying to be friendlier by having an all lowercase logo. And it's just like, that's actually kind of dumb.
Yeah.
It's not, I've seen it so many times. We're just trying to, this is an example of wanting to be something that you're not. It's
right.
It's one thing if you are a tiny little personal company and it's like, hey, we're 2 people and, we do very personal, we're like a boutique or whatever. Then it's like, sure, go all lowercase. That makes some sense. When it's like, we're a Fortune 500 company, but we want to look more personal, so we got rid of all the capital letters because we're your friend. Don't do that. Just, again, use capital letters. They're nice.
Is there anything to, the first letter being capital or all of them being capital, or is there anything?
Yeah, sometimes people think that all caps logos look like you're shouting, but I don't know. I think like I said, if it's done well, if it's done elegantly, it can make sense. It can be justified. Right. It's not an all or nothing. Definitely don't do this. Definitely only capitalize the first letter and then have everything else lowercase. You can do different things, but whatever you do, have intentionality behind it, and don't be, trying to be something that you're not, kind of a thing.
Well, and I wonder too if there's other functionality for it that you want to think about, because I know thinking about our logo, if it was all lowercase, one thing would be, it'd be kind of weird because it is like feels, if it was Backflip and all lowercase, like it's not as professional as we are. Also with like signs, thinking about that, like just the big Backflip anywhere. Uppercase, it's very recognizable. Lowercase, or even partially lowercase, I could argue that it would not kind of have that impact, that because they're the uppercase, and maybe it's the whole font, but they're thick letters. That childishness or that personalness we can still have, but that's maybe more secondary to kind of the grandioseness or the
Some of that also comes from the typeface selection. So if you go with some like super harsh Gothic, right, and it's all lowercase, but it's bold and thick and strong, and I think that can look very professional. It can look very strong. It can be in your face.
Okay.
When it's kind of light and wispy and the letter forms are more conversational, or when it's, say for example, the typeface is like for readability or something like that, or it's set in a typeface that would normally be used for body copy, that'll have a very different feel, or if you set it in that's used like maybe like an old style, that we'd normally set like a book in or something, that'll feel very different. And so capitalization is only one part of the equation. It's not the be all end all.
Are you seeing with the lowercase in these scenarios, are they thinner, wispier fonts?
Yeah, that's specifically what I'm referring to, is like some humanist sans all lowercase because we're trying to seem friendlier, and that is very often the motivation, even in the corporatees, press release or whatever. Right. It's like, we want to be more accessible to blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay.
All right, what's up next?
Okay, last two. The first one is
what is that word?
Dot explosions.
Oh, I thought it was Dorfiforms. That's what it looks like from over here.
Dorfiforms.
Can you talk a little bit more about Dorfiforms?
Yes, hate them.
On the sans serifs.
I can't stand when you use Dorfiforms.
Dot explosions. What
dot
is a
explosions.
Explosion?
Have you seen like, oh my gosh, so they'll just have like maybe there'll be like a person, and then there's like just an explosion of dots behind them, or like, here's our word mark, and the first letter is exploding with dots, or like some array of dots. Maybe they're blobby dots, maybe they're dots that look like leaves, maybe they're dots. It's just dot explosion. And I don't know if there's a name for the trend besides dot explosion, but man, I'm sick of it. Like, just ugh.
Is it just behind letters, or is it composing letters?
No, it's like around them, like just kind of off to the side. Like, here's our logo, and here's a beep. Like,
what's an example? I want to look.
Look up the Experian rebrand. By the way,
Experian.
Everyone, if you're interested in branding, read Brand New. Underconsideration.com/brand new. It's like the best branding blog that there is. And Armin, who's the guy that like does it, just had his year-end like best and worst of the previous year. This, I think, is the worst. And just these like goofy little stupid dots.
Oh, so this is several of those trends. Lowercase.
Yep. Kind of just a pile of all of the bad ones.
Yeah.
Just like, what are you doing?
Interesting.
Yeah. So that happens a lot. There's just like rando dots just kind of around the logo.
Because the dots indicate
it's like
credit
a net
score.
Yeah, something. It's like
That's
network,
right?
It's diversity, whatever. That's another design trend to avoid.
This feels like the .com boom style of like dots or squares or pixels or pixels turning into words or they paid a lot of money for that.
Yeah. Look at cupcakes. Everything looks good on a cupcake.
That's true.
Okay.
Tastes
so
better.
My last two things are less about specific design things and more about like bad habits that happen within design processes. The first one being overwrought, stupid corporatese jargon that accompanies rebrands. Like just all of this stuff about how this angle represents the diversity of the such and such and this whatever, like all of these goofy justifications and just so self-important, and oh my gosh, like I've read so many of those things, and at this point it's just like, okay, it's so refreshing for a place to just be like, we did this because it looks cool. That's it. Like, it looks cool. And if that's why you did it, just admit it. You know, like I said, generally speaking, I want there to be intentionality. But don't do some stuff and be like, and just make up a bunch of nonsense about how, like, these little lines or this little thing represents some very, very lofty value that we have in our... It's just like, come on. This is...
Do you think it's more when you see it? Do you think it's more justification? Or
it's totally just like projected onto it after the fact. Like, no, you did not, you know, tilt your E a little bit because, you know, the I don't know, you representing change, looking towards the future of whatever. It's just all garbage.
Is this it sounds like designer hat versus business hat, which you get to wear different hats at different times. Because when I think about that, I see that as well in video and other areas of marketing. But I feel that marketing and communication, you know, a lot of it, let's go 80-20. 80% is perception, right? So you could put a crap logo out, but if you have that, you know, fake intentionality or something that seems genuine intentionality or reasoning, people can get behind it and buy into it. And if a bunch of people start getting happy, well then, you know, it could potentially take off because of that intentionality. So I'm curious if that is a part of a business strategy.
Oh, it totally is.
You know, like the designer's like, I don't know, it was cool. And then the creative director's like, well, it's a sun looking forward to the horizon of the future tomorrow.
Yeah. Right.
Like, what?
Well, and I suppose there is a possibility that it's like, you know, little kind of unintentional designer and then some, you know, poor sap that has to like impart a bunch of meaning onto their work. But more likely it's a large team of well-paid people who put together some absolute baloney about, like, you know, all of these way, way, way too lofty things, you know, that appeal to, you know, not the consumer. They just appeal to people on a board. They appeal to a CEO. They appeal, you know what I mean? Like, it's just corporatese jargon. It's the kind of stuff that, like, when you talk to like your kind of everyman, you know, like if think of like your grandpa or something, right? Like if you tried to tell that and he'd just be like, you sound like you should shut up. You know what I mean? Like that's a good, like, you know, kind of barometer for, just like if you know, kind of your red-blooded American dad would just be like, that sounds like BS, you know, that's probably shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
It's just,
well, that's interesting too. Cause I wonder those things that you've seen, those brands that are doing that, what they're hearing from their customers or their target audience. You know, is this something like, well, we changed it to blue because people like blue, or, you know, it represents this or this other lofty concept. My guess is that it's very simple, and that when pressed for something deeper, sure, they could give you something, and maybe it's something that you thought of or you haven't. But the intentionality that they see is probably more simple than I'm sure you're
And I think it's fine to be simple. You know what I mean? I like the idea. Look, I'm not saying that there's not value in intentional, you know, well thought out design, and that you try and represent bigger things in smaller things. I mean, yeah, that's my job. I really enjoy doing that. But there's times where you can tell that it's lazy. Like we just know that thing is very. You're trying really, really hard to justify that the reason you did that is to, you know, accomplish this kind of larger goal. But that's just lazy. You tilted a thing, or you added a dot, or you took a chunk out of this thing, or whatever. It's like, no, it's fine. Apple's logo has a bite out of it. Why? Who knows? Like, it's not because some stupid, big, long thing about how an apple with a bite out of it represents progress. You know what I mean? It's just because it's more recognizable or whatever, you know? Like, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's a symbol that they came up with. you can justify, and people ask us about, our logo and like, oh, you guys do backflips, and sorry if I'm making fun of anyone who's watching. We don't do backflips.
Right.
But that's one simple thing that people think about, or like, hey, do you have that in your branding or this or that? And we're like, no, not really. I mean, the closest we come is that backflips are kind of awesome. And what we want to do is we want to create really awesome things, so backflip, it's different, it's not something you hear every day. It's not, generic word video production company,
right?
Generic word video, or whatever it is. It's just a different word that we think is kind of cool because we think what we do is kind of cool. That's about as close as we get to kind of that meaning.
Right. So that's thing number one is like just garbage, silly, long corporatese crap about why you made some goofy changes. Avoid that. The other thing is design contests. This is not generally a thing for very small companies. Not many do them. But man, when a big company does some design contest or a big organization like puts out a thing and like, we're going to have a logo contest. Who did that recently? Was it Gander Mountain? Yeah, I think Gander Mountain put out. Yeah, it was. And like,
just to not spend money on it.
But the thing is they were going to back it. Like they were going to put a ton of money. They were like, whoever won was going to get a bunch of money. A lot of people then end up doing work for free.
Yeah.
And that just sucks. Like, it is a lot of money, but that's not a lot of money to pay that many people. That's a lot of money to pay one person or one company. So just do it that way. Do your interviews, find the right company that can help you understand your brand, and move it forward. Don't just cast a net out and hope to catch, there was a story from a few years ago. This is probably 6 years ago now, when JCPenney did their logo design contest. Okay. Oh my goodness. Like, it was fine. Like, the logo was fine. And the, well done to that kid, the student that won the logo design contest. JCPenney's brand has been absolutely crushed in the last 6 years. So it went really, really far south. It wasn't the designer's fault at all. It was, JCPenney just mismanaged that. But just the idea of some giant, billions of dollars in revenue company getting their logo from some design contest is just like offensive to the idea of like, yeah, professionals, we do the work that we do, we spend time, we research. I suppose if you believe that you can get the same result, from just casting as wide of a net as possible among people who have no idea what they're doing. Some people do know what they're doing, but probably most of them don't, because the ones who do know what they're doing aren't willing to work for not getting paid,
Right, sure.
And you think that you can get the same value doing it that way.
So is that not something you'd ever do?
No.
If your favorite brand said, hey, we're going to have a design contest.
No, because I don't have the time. I mean, I don't want to work for free. I don't like working for free, and I don't
What if you could redesign NFL logo?
Actually, that logo is pretty good. They redid that a couple of years ago. I mean,
what if they hadn't?
Yeah,
and
what
they
if
had a design contest?
Yeah, no, because I also just sort of stand vehemently opposed to the idea of doing design contests. I don't want to do it, and I don't want other designers to do it because I think that the fewer designers that participate in this thing, we kind of have to stand together and be like, this is not a great way to do this. It's sort of taking advantage of the fact that, you could, in theory, pay a bunch of people almost nothing or nothing and get what you want, for way at a low price. You're taking advantage of the fact that people are trying to get ahead and trying to start something and trying to, start their career. It doesn't feel super good. So if instead we say, no, I'm not going to participate in that, I would much rather you interview me, see if I'm the one to do your brand. I think that I am, because I believe that I'm good at what I do. Make that decision, in a personal way. Don't just throw out something on your blog and be like, we're going to have, the 100 days of design contest. We're going to pick whatever, and we're going to give, $20,000 to the winner, which is like, ooh, that's a lot of money, but it's not a ton of money for a multi-billion-dollar company to redo a logo.
Now, what about services like Fiverr? Hey, I have this work, and it's design, and it's lots of other things as well, coding and development. I have this work. Who wants to pitch on it? And I think especially with logo or graphics, people submit designs.
But even that, you're probably, hopefully, submitting hey, these are some initial directions. And I've done that before. Just like, hey, you know what? I took half an hour. These are kind of some initial things just to get some wheels turning. But to be clear, the best result is going to come from you and me sitting down multiple times, talking about your goals, talking about your target, doing this the right way. Not from 15 minutes of me just kind of throwing crap against the wall, or you getting 100 people to spend 15 minutes to throw crap against the wall, particularly students or just amateur designers, high school students that just learned Photoshop kind of a thing. Like, just, you have to weed through all of that to end up probably with a logo that, or a brand that isn't great, isn't totally thought out. Now the better way to do it is to be intentional about it, go with somebody who knows what they're doing, decide that you trust them, and then, walk down that path with them.
Right. So, and I'm hearing, the value of the rest of the professional skills in there, aside from just design. Right. What about Phil 12 years ago?
Oh man, I did logo design contest.
The NFL, wants to redesign. Are you going to do that?
Yes, absolutely. When I was a student, I participated in a number of logo design contests. I didn't win any of them. And looking back on it, it was like, yeah, I spent a bunch of time to come up with stuff and never got paid for it.
You think it's valuable for you as a student to, hey, I'm going to work on the NFL. We'll just keep using that as an example.
Not as valuable as, as a student, I think it's valuable to pick a company, to research them, to learn about them, and then go through the process. Obviously, they're not sitting there, so you can't actually have them as a client, and you're missing something. But that's a really, really good exercise. And you're not going to get paid for it, but that's okay because it's about growing. And they're also not going to get, the work. Like, if they wanted the work, they would have to pay you for it, which is different than like, yeah, I'm going to use these logo. I can get the same thing and actually probably a better thing by not participating in a logo design contest, by instead just doing it as an exercise separate from any logo design contests, I think that there's a lot more growth to be had there. So do I blame a student for doing a logo design contest? No, it's fine. I'm not and I don't blame anybody for doing it necessarily. I just think that, no, I more hold the place with the money accountable, because it's very often the case that they know what they're doing and they know that they're kind of trying to get a bargain on the whole thing and taking advantage of the system. But if I'm having a conversation with a young filmmaker or a young designer, I'm saying, have the discipline to just pursue those things, yourself. Do your own projects, and I think you can grow a lot doing those things. And if you're in design school or in film school or whatever, you're probably going to be doing that kind of thing. I know at least in when designers are taking those classes, like you're guarantee you're rebranding companies, or your professor is coming up with a fake company, right, with an outline, whatever, a history and blah blah blah, and you need to come up with a brand for it. Super valuable. So
yeah, great exercise. So there you have it. It's kind of both sides of the contests. Basically, stay away from smashing logos together, lowercasing, cutting weird things off, dot explosions, and that's it, right? Besides that, number one, trends to avoid. That's the whole topic.
That's exactly it.
So just don't do any of those things.
Don't do any of those,
and you'll be
awesome.
You're fine.
Guaranteed.
Great. Thanks, Phil.
You're welcome.
This is great. Next week, we have Jeff. We're going to be taking a look at 2017, the great things that happened here and with Jeff, and just kind of a 2017 in review. Should be pretty great. Thanks.